In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this crochet skull applique. And this applique, we work it in one entire piece. And this crochet skull is really easy to make because we don't have to cut the yarn and fasten off to create the eye portion or the mouth portion of the skull. I do have another crochet applique, which is a little bit larger than this one. This one here is done with 9 rows, and the other applique was a little bit bigger. It had a few more rows. It had 13 rows. If you want to learn how to make this skull applique, please join me in this tutorial and I will show you how to make it. Okay, and to make the skull, I'm going to use a size H8 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. And I'm going to be using a 4-ply worsted weight acrylic yarn. I'm going to start with a slip knot. And then I'm going to chain 10 chains. I'm going to skip this first chain that's closest to the hook, and then into the next chain I'm going to do a single crochet. And then I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the rest of the chains for row 1. Okay, and that completes row 1. When you're done with row 1, you should have 9 single crochets. Okay, so for row 2, I'm going to start by chaining 4 chains. In this chain 4, the first 3 chains of the chain 4 will count as a double crochet, and then the 4th chain will count as a chain 1. And then I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to skip the very next stitch. So this is the first stitch, which is in line with the chain 4, the turning chain. I'm going to skip the next stitch, and then into the next stitch I'm going to work a double crochet. So skipping the next stitch and then work a double crochet into the next one. And then chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then 1 double crochet into the next one after skipping 1 stitch. And then chain 1, skip a stitch, and then double crochet into the next one. And then chain 1, and then skip the next stitch, and then 1 double crochet into this last stitch for this row. Okay, and that completes row 2. For row 3, I'm going to start with a chain 4. And the first 3 chains will count as the double crochet, and then the 4th chain will be the chain 1. So then I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to skip this chain 1 space, and then I'll work a double crochet into the next stitch, which is the top of the double crochet from the second row, the previous row, and then chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, and then double crochet into the next stitch, which is the top of the double crochet from the previous row. And then chain 1 again, skip the chain 1 space here, and then double crochet into the next stitch, which is the top of the double crochet from the previous row. and then chain 1, and then here's that, and then here's the 4 chains. So we're going to skip this chain here and then into the next chain. I'm going to do a double crochet, because if you come from the bottom, you want to count up 3. 1, 2, 3. So into that chain, do a double crochet. And that completes row 3. Okay, so for row 4, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and then into this first stitch, I'm going to work 2 half double crochets into that first stitch. For a half double crochet, you do a yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, pull up a loop. You will have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So that's the first half double crochet into the first stitch, and then I'm going to do a second half double crochet into that same first stitch. Okay, and then here's the chain 1 space. So I'm going to work a single crochet into that chain 1 space. I'm not going to insert my hook into the actual chain here. I'm going to insert my hook into the chain 1 space to work my single crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and work my single crochet into that chain 1 space. And then I'm going to work a single crochet in the next stitch, which is the top of the double crochet from the previous row. So I'm working a single crochet. So for this row, we're going to work a single crochet in each chain 1 space and a single crochet into each double crochet, and then I'll show you what we'll do at the end of the row. So next chain 1 space, single crochet, then a single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the chain 1 space, single crochet into the next stitch, and then here's that chain 4. So since the first 3 chains count as a double crochet, and that's the chain 1, we will need to do a single crochet into that chain space. So insert your hook, single crochet, and then we're going to work 2 half double crochets into the top of the 3rd chain here. So we'd count from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, and into that chain we'll work 2 half double crochets. So 2 half double crochets into the same chain here. We did 2 half double crochets when we started the row, so we want to end with 2 half double crochets as well. Okay, so for row 5, let's go ahead and chain 1, turn our work, and then I'm going to single crochet into this first stitch. So I just single crocheted into the top of the half double crochet. So 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then into the next stitch I'm going to do a half double crochet. So I'm doing a half double crochet into the top of the half double crochet here, the previous row. So we begin with a single crochet, then a half double crochet, and then I'm going to do 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches. So 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches. And into the next stitch, we're going to work a double crochet, and then we'll chain 5, and then another double crochet into that same stitch. So it will be like a V stitch, but instead of doing a chain 1 or chain 2 in between the double crochets, there'll be a chain 5, and that's going to be for the nose opening here. So into the next stitch, we'll start with a double crochet into the stitch, then chain 5 chains. Okay, so I just did 5 chains, and then I'm going to work a double crochet back into that same stitch where I did a double crochet before I did the chain 5. So that's what it should look like now. So it's going to have a double crochet, chain 5, double crochet into the same stitch. And then I'm going to work 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches. So that's what it should look like so far. You can see that's the nose opening there. Okay, and then we have 2 stitches left here. So the next stitch, we'll work a half double crochet. And then into the last stitch, I'm going to work a single crochet. That completes row 5. Okay, so for row 6, I'm going to start with a chain 1 and then turn my work. And then I'm going to do a single crochet into this first stitch. And then 1 double crochet into the next 4 stitches. So I'm working 1 double crochet into the next 4 stitches. Okay, so I just did 1 double crochet into those last 4 stitches. So now you'll see here there's a double crochet before the chain 5. I'm going to skip that double crochet there. We're not going to work a stitch into that one. We're skipping that. And then I'm going to work 5 single crochets into this chain 5 space. So I'm not going to work into the actual chains. I'm going to insert my hook into the chain space to do my single crochets. So I'm going to go ahead and work 5 single crochets all into this chain 5 space. Just 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I just did 5 single crochets into that chain 5 space. Okay, and then I'm going to skip this next double crochet after the chain 5 space, and then into the next 4 stitches I will do 1 double crochet each. So skipping this next one, and then work 1 double crochet into the next 4 stitches. It's 2, 3, and then 4. Okay, so I just did 1 double crochet into the last 4 stitches, and remember we skipped the double crochet after the chain 5. And then into this last stitch I'm going to do a single crochet. And that completes row 6. Okay, so for row 7, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and then I'm going to skip this very first stitch. And then I'm going to work a half double crochet into the next stitch after skipping one. So we're skipping this one and then working a half double crochet into the next stitch. And then into the next stitch, I'm going to work 1 double crochet. Okay, so this row I began with skipping the first stitch, then I worked a half double crochet into the next one, and then a double crochet into the next stitch. Now we're going to create the eye openings here. So I'm going to chain 7 chains. Okay, so I just did 7 chains. Then I'm going to skip 4 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then into the next stitch, I'm going to work a single crochet. That single crochet is going to be in the center of the 5 single crochets that I worked into the chain 5 space in the previous row. So you'll see there's 5 chains here. So 1, 2, the third one, 4, 5. So right in the middle, that's where your single crochet should be done. So we chained 7, skipped 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then single crocheted into the next stitch right in the center of the 5 single crochets. Now we're going to create the second eye opening here. So we're going to chain 7 chains. Okay, so I just chained 7 chains, and then I'm going to skip 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Into the very next stitch, I will do 1 double crochet after skipping 4 stitches. Okay, so there's the second eye opening there. So then, into the next stitch, I will work a half double crochet. So we're working 1 half double crochet into the next stitch after we did the double crochet. And then into this last stitch, I'm going to do a slip stitch. And that completes row 7. Okay, so for row 8, I'm going to chain 1, then turn my work, and then I'm going to skip this very first stitch here. That first stitch was that slip stitch that we just did when we ended the previous row 7. So we're skipping that first stitch, and then into the next stitch I will work a single crochet. In that single crochet, if you look, it's in the top of the half double crochet from the previous row. So I worked a single crochet, and then into the next stitch I will work a half double crochet, and that half double crochet is into the top of the double crochet from the previous row. And now I'm going to work into the chain 7 space. So into the chain 7 space, I'm going to start with 2 half double crochets into that chain 7 space. And then I will also work 7 double crochets into that chain 7 space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. So into that chain 7 space, I worked 9 stitches. I started working, I did 2 half double crochets and then 7 double crochets all into that chain 7 space. And then into the next stitch, I'm going to work 1 double crochet. So I worked 1 double crochet into the top of the single crochet from the previous row. So that's the stitch right in between the 2 eye openings here. And then into this chain 7 space here, I'm going to work 9 stitches. I will work 7 double crochets and 2 half double crochets all into this chain 7 space. So let me go ahead and do my 7 double crochets into the chain 7 space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I did 7 double crochets, and then you may need to move those stitches over a little bit to make room for the 2 half double crochets. So now I'm going to work my 2 half double crochets into that same chain 7 space. Okay, so now we have 2 more stitches here, because if you look, it kind of curves down. 2 more stitches for this row. So into the next stitch, I'm going to work a half double crochet. And then into this last stitch, I will work a single crochet. Okay, and that completes row 8. Okay, so for row 9, I'm going to start with the chain 1, and then I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to skip this first stitch, then I'm going to work a single crochet decrease over the next 2 stitches. So skip the first stitch, and then we're going to decrease here. So I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch after skipping one, pull up a loop, and then I'm not going to finish the single crochet because we're going to work 2 single crochets together to decrease. So then I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and then you'll see that you have 3 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to complete your single crochet decrease. So I just worked 2 stitches together to do a decrease, and then I'm going to do 1 single crochet into the next 4 stitches. And then I'm going to work 1 half double crochet into the next stitch. And then I'm going to work 1 double crochet into the next 7 stitches. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It was 1 double crochet into the last 7 stitches. And then into the next stitch, I'm going to work a half double crochet. And then I'm going to work 1 single crochet into the next 4 stitches. Okay, so I just worked 1 single crochet into the last 4 stitches. So just to recap, after I did the 7 double crochets, I did a half double crochet and then 1 single crochet into the last 4 stitches. Okay, and then I have 3 stitches left for this row. So I'm going to do the same thing I did over here. So over the next 2 stitches, I'm going to do a single crochet decrease. So I'm going to insert my hook into this stitch, pull up a loop, and then I'll insert my hook into the very next stitch and pull up a loop. And then you'll see I have 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to do my decrease. So I just did 2 single crochets together to work a decrease, and then into this last stitch I will do a slip stitch. Okay, and that completes row 9. Okay, so now, to finish off the skull, we're going to work around the edge here, and then do some stitches along this edge, and then some stitches along the bottom, and then this edge, and then along this edge. And then we're going to stop. You see where it kind of sticks out a little bit here? That's where we did that slip stitch. So that's where we'll stop. And we don't need to work any stitches along the top here. So from this point to here, we want to work 6 single crochets evenly. So before we get to this like chain 1 space for the tooth. So it's 1, 2, there's 3, 4. And when you work these stitches, you want to try to get underneath 2 strands right here. That way you won't create a hole on the side, a big gap. Okay, so that's 4, 5, and 6. Now I ended right before that chain space for the tooth area here. And you may not need 6 stitches to get to this point. You may only need 5, or maybe you might even need to add an extra one. You might need 7. You just want to make sure that if you work 5 stitches or 6 or 7 stitches, that you do the same thing over here. So when we come back around and we get to this point here, after we work on the side here where the chain space is, then you would do the same amount of stitches that you did here. And then you're going to stop where this kind of sticks out. So you'll know where to end because that's that slip stitch that we did. So you're going to stop there. So it makes it easy to know when to stop. So I did 6 single crochets here, so I need to do 6 single crochets over here. So if you have 5 or 7, then you'll want to do the same amount over here. Okay, so now I'm here where that chain space is. So along the side here, I'm going to work 2 single crochets into that space. So rather than work into the end of the row, I'm just going to insert my hook into the chain space and work 2 single crochets there. Okay, just like that. And then there's a row in between these 2 rows with the chain spaces, so into the end of that row I'll work a single crochet, and then into that chain space I'll insert my hook and work 2 single crochets into that chain space along the side here. And then this is row 1, so into the end of row 1 I'm going to work a single crochet. And then as I turn the corner, I'm going to do a second single crochet into that stitch. So there's that. I just turn the corner here. So now this is the bottom edge of the skull. So we're going to work into the bottom edge of the chains here. So if you look here, we did 9 single crochets. So I'm going to work 9 single crochets into the bottom edge here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and that's 9. And then I'm going to be turning the corner here, so I'm going to work a single crochet into the end of that row 1. Okay, and then along the edge here, we're back to where that chain space is for the tooth. So I'm going to insert my hook into that chain space and work 2 single crochets, just like I did over here. Then here's the row in between. Okay, then I'm going to work a single crochet into the end of that row that's in between the chain spaces there. And then I'm going to work 2 single crochets into that chain space. Okay, so I did the same thing over here that I did over here. So now I did, before I got to the area where the teeth are, the teeth openings, I did 6 single crochets over here. So that means I want to do 6 single crochets evenly spaced here until I get to that stitch right there where it kind of sticks out. So I'm going to work 6 single crochets. And remember, if you had less stitches, where maybe you worked 5 stitches instead of 6 stitches over here, then you would do the same thing that you did here. So if you worked 5, you'd work 5 stitches. Or if you needed to add 1 and you work 7 over here, then work 7. So you just want to do the same thing over here that you did here, from this point to this point where you had the spaces for the teeth. So I worked 6 single crochets, so I'm going to work 6 single crochets till I get to that point where it kind of sticks out here. That was the slip stitch, so it makes it easy to know where to end when I work my 6 single crochets. Okay, so that's 1. Okay, there's my second one. 3. It's 4. And you may need to turn the hook to get into the stitches. There's 5. And 1 more. And 6. And then, once you work your stitches there, join with the slip stitch to that first stitch. And joining with the slip stitch. Okay, and that completes my skull. Okay, then yarn over with that tail, pull that through, give it a tug to fasten off, and then all I need to do now is weave in the ends. And that completes my skull applique. I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial today, and I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day.